All right, let's give this a shot. There we go. If everything's working correctly, you should see my first slide. And on that slide is a picture of the White Library. So if you're ever in the Spring Arbor area, I highly encourage you to stop on by. One of the things I always want students to know, whether you're close or far away, is you always have the same access to these services that our on-campus students do. If you're at a distance, we just deliver them to you in a little bit different way. If you are at another location, we are always happy to send books to you if you want a physical book. We include a postage paid return label with the item. If we don't happen to have something that you want, go ahead and ask us for it if you have time to wait for it. And if it's a physical item, we would also ship that item to you, including a postage paid return label. So basically, if the material that it came in is in good shape, go ahead and save that. And when you go to ship it back to us, just slap the label on there and you can ship it back free of charge. What we're going to focus on today, though, is the electronic items, both in the books and the articles, so that you can see the items you can get to right away. Of course, you can imagine that if we have to ship it to you, it's going to take whatever time it would take for us to gather it and mail it to you via postal mail. And the same is true with the interlibrary loan, except you have to add in the time it would take for the other library to ship it to us. So again, you're more than welcome to use those sources, but if you're short on time, the electronic sources are going to be what you'll want to access because you'll get them more quickly. Now I'm going to flip back a couple of slides here. I want you to be able to see the faces of the people who may be answering the phone if you happen to call. As you can see on the screen, to the left is Robbie Bolton. He's our library director. Then you see Karen Parsons, who serves as our information and reference librarian. Then myself, the online and distance learning librarian, and Amy Kalmus, the emerging technologies librarian. Basically, those titles just tell you our specializations. Any one of us, though, is happy to help you if you happen to call and reach any one of us. I want to make sure, though, that I highlight how you do get in touch with us. You're free to call us or email us at any time. I also want you to see, though, that on our homepage, if I pull our homepage up here, let me drag that over here into this screen so you can see it. If I go to the help screen right here, you can always choose Ask a Librarian, and that will take you to a form that you can fill out the requested info, and you will be able to send an email directly to us when you click the send button. You can always use the Ask a Librarian tab or button that's on the side of any of the pages once you get off of the home page. That'll bring you to this same link right here. And also, this gray Chat with a Librarian box that you see me circling with my mouse right now, that is a subscription service we use. It is a 24/7 service. We put in some time on there as well, but basically what it does is it allows us to collaborate with librarians from across the nation and even a couple in the UK to provide 24/7 service. Now, when you message, you can imagine since it's coming from across the US, you may not always get us, but it allows us to still have your questions answered any time of the day or night. So if your ideal time of the day is actually 3 in the morning when we're asleep, you know you're still going to get a response from a librarian. Feel free to ask any questions about, database choices, what topic, what word should I use for my topic? And you can even try to ask SAU-specific questions. We do provide some information to the other librarians in the co-op so that they can answer some of those questions. And if what you ask them is too specific for them to answer, they will refer it back to us to be answered when we're available. So don't worry about the question you ask. They'll let you know whether or not they can actually answer it for you. Also, right now, nobody's signed in from our library, but if you get on our service and you see this little blue tab right here that says chat on it, it would appear, let me pull up the screen here. It would appear about right here on the screen on your right side. If you happen to see that button on the screen, that means that one of the 4 of us, is actually logged in live and can answer your question. So you can feel free to click that chat button, or if you get one of the pop-up windows that asks if we can help you in some way, feel free to respond to that if you have a question, and we'll be happy to chat with you right then. So those are some ways you can get a hold of us immediately. I already mentioned how we would get physical items to you, but I wanted to also highlight that if you're ever puzzled about where to start what search terms to use, how to use our services. If you have questions about the website, please do feel free to contact us at any time. And also, if you feel, as you start to get into your research, if you feel like you really just need some one-on-one time with the librarian to go over some of these things, do feel free to let us know that. And we can schedule a one-on-one session with you, either via Zoom, which is the service we're using right now. We can use Skype, Google Hangouts, basically whatever's going to work best for you to be able to sit down and take a look at some of these resources one-on-one using your topic. So real quickly, as distance students, I want to make sure you know how to get onto the White Libraries page. So if you are actually looking at the portal, let's drag that over here so you can see it. You may have more or less tabs than I do, depending on your login permissions. But on everybody's, you will have a tab that says Library. So if you click on that Library tab, it will open us up in a new link, so you don't, or in a new tab rather, so you don't have to worry about losing whatever you're working on over here. Likewise, if you actually happen to be in your Blackboard screen, you'll find that there is a White Library link right here. And when you click on that link, you're going to come to some frequently used links over here on the right. You'll find some quick information about how to reach us, as well as our general hours. The monthly calendars, a link to that is provided, so that especially for close to the holidays, you can see if we've got different hours than usual. But if you want to link directly to our website, feel free to click on this banner right here. And when you click on that, once again, it'll open our webpage. And as you saw, it opens in a brand new tab, so you don't lose what you're doing over here in Blackboard. So those are two quick ways to get to us. And as always, you can always go directly to our website at www.arbor.edu/White Library. So those are some very quick ways to get in touch with us. Now, real quickly before we go any further, let's take a look at a video that Amy designed so that you can get an idea about how to use our services on our website. So let me see if I can get this to pull up in the right window here. Here we go. And without further ado, let's play that for you.
Welcome to the White Library's new website. Our site now features sliders that showcase services that we provide at the library. The best way to navigate the new site is by using the main navigation bar at the top of the screen. If you select the About the Library tab, you'll be able to access features like My Account, view faculty and staff, policies and services, the Contact Us form, and view information about the university archives. The Search tab allows you to access features like finding articles, books, searching the entire library collection, looking through journals, and finding information through other libraries. If you select the Search for Articles button, you will be taken to a page that allows you to use this drop-down menu to search for information in a particular subject area. On the right-hand side, you will see a gray Chat with a Librarian box. This box allows you to get reference help 24/7. There's also quick link buttons to the Ask a Librarian page and the Interlibrary Loan Request. On the left-hand side of the screen is our Pinterest page. You will see new books that are being featured there. The Help tab allows you to access citation style guides, tutorials and library handouts, and there's also a special page for distance and online students. The Support the Library page is a place where you can go to see how you can help the White Library. Finally, Faculty Publications is a place where Spring Arbor University faculty can showcase the work that they have published. We hope that you enjoy our new website. Please let us know if you have any questions. Welcome to the White Library's new website. Our site.
Okay, so now that we've taken a look at just a basic overview of our website and how things function, are there questions about that portion of it at this time?
No.
No.
Good so far?
Yep.
All right. We will then move on. We talked about how to get to our site. The next thing I want to make sure we cover, if you've not done this already, is you will end up having to log in at some point if you've not used our services yet. And when you are on our site, anytime you navigate off of our homepage and onto something that requires subscription access, that's when it's going to ask you to log in. And more times than not, what it will be asking you for is your username and your password. And when it presents you with that white screen that you see on the PowerPoint right now, what it's asking you for is your MySAU login ID and password. There are 2 exceptions to that. If you happen to be trying to access the My Account information, that information is basically for when you are trying to check out physical books or videos or things of that nature. If you're trying to use that feature, it's going to ask for your first and last name and your student ID number. And that's referring to the number that's found on your ID card. It will ask you for that same information if you ever try to use the Michigan Electronic Library. Many people don't use that. That's more for if, say, we don't have something and you want to know if another library does. Some people want to get into that and ask for it directly. It will still come through us and be shipped to you the way we described before for an interlibrary loan. But a lot of people will just ask us if we can get something via interlibrary loan, so you may never use that feature. But if you are somebody who's trying to use that, it will present you with that screen you see where it asks you which account to use, which is Spring Arbor, and then we'll ask you for your first and last name and your 6-digit barcode. It's referring to your student ID also. So if you use either the My Account feature or the Michigan Electronic Library, it'll be first and last name and student ID. Otherwise, everything else is asking you for the MySAU login. Making sense so far? Perfect.
Yeah.
So now we're going to touch real quick on some ideas on ways to think about your research process. Now, if you've already got a process in place for yourself, that's totally fine. But I know sometimes people come back to the classroom after a time away and they're kind of lost as to where to go with this. So I'm going to show you a suggestion on a way for you to kind of think about it and get started. So if I drag our homepage back over here so you can see it, the worksheet I'm going to talk about is under Help. And if you drop down to Tutorials, there's a place on here that says Course Guides. And WRT312 has a few things that have been posted. This is an old set of PowerPoints from a previous workshop. And these worksheets right here are the ones that were designed to assist you with this next segment that I'm going to suggest to you. What you're seeing right now, let me actually make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. The idea here is when you're doing research, a lot of times what you're doing is you are asking some kind of a question. I'll show you a sample of one that has been filled out so you can see how this works. But basically you would put your question in this box right up here, and then you would break your question down into however many individual concepts that involved. Then you would copy those concepts down and think about what other terms might be used to find those concepts. So for instance, if I were doing some research on the idea of what impact does human trafficking have on society, I might break that down into 2 main concepts of human trafficking and then societal impact. And what you might consider is if concept 1, if this circle represents all articles on human trafficking, and if this circle represents all articles that have something to do with things that have impact on society or aspects of society, what you want to know is what intersection or what articles contain both of these concepts. So what articles would tell us about both human trafficking and how it impacts society? So what we want to do is before we even go into the database, we want to stop and kind of brainstorm and think about what terms we might use, because sometimes when you go to the databases, it's good to be armed. And something I tell students, and it may sound funny to some people, but if you can think of this as kind of a treasure hunt of sorts, any way you can make this more fun for yourself, the less intimidating it is. So for example, if I were to go into the database and I were, let's say you cover up the word human trafficking. If that word did not exist in the database, what could I use in its place? In this case, we're going to think of some synonyms, words that mean basically the same thing. So maybe we would think about the modern slavery movement, or perhaps new abolitionist movement, or even the not-for-sale movement. So words that you might be able to trade in, or phrases you could trade in for the initial idea that you had, just in case that database doesn't have that word or words that you were originally looking for. Now, with the idea of societal impact, we did something a little bit different here. Because the idea of society is a really broad topic, we broke it down into some individual ideas that might come out of that. So perhaps you might be researching the impact that human trafficking has specifically on business, or maybe economics, or human dignity, or crime. So you can see sometimes when you've got a broad topic, rather than an exact synonym, you might look for different components. And you may find as you go along too, once you find new research items, they may inform your research. So as you start to gather new keywords or new concepts, you might write those in the margins. And likewise, whether on a separate piece of paper or right on this paper, you might also make note to yourself what databases did or did not work for you, because inevitably, you may have kids that you have to go take care of, or you may have to cook dinner or care for a parent. Something's going to interrupt you and you'll have to come back later. The more notes you make for yourself, the easier this becomes, so that you're not reinventing the wheel every time you come back to the database. So the idea here is the more that we interchange those words or phrases, it's going to give you different results. And if you brainstorm before you ever go into the database, it kind of helps you along the way so that you've got an arsenal of information to go into it with, instead of staring at those blanks, because sometimes the blanks shut people down. So think about making a list for yourself, even using this worksheet, whatever works best for you. But if you're looking for a way to kickstart your search process and it's been a while, feel free to use these worksheets. Now, one thing you might want to keep in mind when you're building your research is, what strategy do I want to use to gather the information I need for my topic? If you look at this green triangle and you think of it as a funnel, think about if you take a funnel and you throw a handful of dirt into it. What happens is the big stuff sticks toward the top and the little stuff falls toward the bottom. And that's kind of the idea we're thinking of here. The big stuff is toward the top and the little stuff is toward the bottom. The big stuff toward the top is going to be your broader information that's going to help you build a foundation. You may use all of these, you may use only a couple of these items, but the idea here is, if you're looking for something, whether it's to find a definition for yourself or to build a broad definition for your paper, sometimes a good place to start is subject encyclopedias. Those can be good because they give a broad overview of a topic. If you think about an encyclopedia set, you've got a really broad topic and then a lot of individual articles inside to help explain that topic. So none of them are necessarily super specific, but they're good at giving definitions. So whether it's to define something for you or for you to use in the paper itself, sometimes a subject encyclopedia is a good place to get started. Next in the list is books. You can see how that narrows down even more from the subject encyclopedias, because the books can focus much more on some of those individual ideas that perhaps you found in the encyclopedia. And it can go into much more detail about different aspects of that one topic. Periodical articles then, when you think about those, are usually about a specific instance, a specific research, something that's just much, much more narrow than either of the first two items. And then there are times when you have to pull statistics from media, from websites, from different places, such as from government websites, to help you fill in the gaps and make your case. So when you're plotting how you want to do your research, you might want to think about how you need to build it, and then use these different resources as the building blocks to build your paper. Now, some of these tips aren't very practical for those of you in accelerated courses, and I know our adult students are in accelerated courses. But if you can, try to begin your research early. I'm certainly not throwing stones at procrastinators, because I'm good at doing that myself. But the reason I mention this is because if you start early, it helps prevent that last-minute rush that tends to add even more pressure and stress. And if the research process stresses you out, it can make it even harder. Remember that you will have to be flexible with your search terms, because you may have to switch them up. And you'll find that different combinations are going to give you different results. So be flexible and change up your search terms to give you the things that you need. We've already talked about making the searching process a little bit of an adventure to make it less intimidating, but always remember that if you're stuck, please do give us a call, send us an email, get on the chat line, whatever's going to work for you. But don't spend hours banging your head against the wall. That's why we're here. We really do want to give you a hand. So before we get into how to find those resources, let's take a look at this video from Ruth Gabba. She is a librarian at Concordia University, Wisconsin. And I think she has a fun, kind of tongue-in-cheek way of presenting the idea of research. And I'm going to show you her video so that you can see how she presents some of these basics. So let's drag her video over here and take a look at it. I think you'll enjoy how she presents this.
to realize when talking to a computer is that computers are stupid. They do not understand sentence structure. Shoot, they don't really even understand words. Number 2 thing to think about is that with almost every search engine, the word "and" is assumed. Let's imagine you're a student trying to figure out why student athletes would do something as dangerous as use steroids. You go to a search box and you type, "Why would student athletes use steroids?" The computer is not going to see that and think, "Why would student athletes use steroids?" No, the computer sees what you typed and thinks, "Why," and "would," and "student," and "athletes," and "use," and "steroids." Then it goes out and tries to find things that have all those words in any order somewhere in the record of an item and bring you back results. Now, if the searching program is running a sophisticated algorithm, you may find what you need no problem, but sometimes you get a whole bunch of irrelevant junk. This brings me to my next point. Quotation marks keep terms together. Basically, whenever you put search terms inside of quotation marks, you're telling the computer, don't you dare stick an "and" between those words. I want them to appear in this order and right next to each other. Let's imagine that you're a student doing a research paper on how the classroom environment contributes to learning. Now you remember point number 1, computers are stupid. You simply type "classroom environment learning" in the search box. You may end up with articles speaking about how students learn about the environment in their classroom, not the topic you're looking for. So you search again, and this time you put "classroom environment" in quotes. This gives you results that talk about how the desk and the walls and the bulletin boards and the computer stations contribute to student learning. Now, when you're picking what terms to use, particularly in a catalog or a database, you need to know something. Real live human beings create database and catalog records. Right now, sitting in cubicles are teams of people with stacks of books and journals next to them who are typing into a computer things like title and author and subject terms. These real live human beings all went to college. Plus, they're indexing scholarly stuff, so guess what they're going to use? That's right, a college-level vocabulary. This, coupled with your understanding that computers are stupid, means that when you put search terms in a box, it helps to talk to a computer like you're a caveman with a high vocabulary. Let's put it all together. Let's say your research question is, why don't college students get enough sleep? You may say to the search engine, college students, sleep. If your research question is, what do I need to know about talking to older patients? You may type in the search box, communication and elderly patients. One final point as you head out to find stuff. There's a difference between locating a text and actually getting your hands on it. Think about shopping online. You find a cute pair of shoes, you put the shoes in your shopping cart, and you check out. Then your computer cracks open, and you pull out the shoes, and you put them on, and you're ready to go. Don't be ridiculous. The fact is, finding research materials online is a lot like finding shoes online, only in this case, you pay money to the school gives some of the money to the library uses that money to purchase access to a wealth of resources. What's better than shopping for most things online is that a huge percentage of the time you're going to find something you want, click on its title, and it, like magic, it'll be right there. Then there are times where you're actually going to end up using a link resolver page where you may have to click on the title and then the volume, then scroll through to the table of contents until you find the article and then click on it to get it. Sometimes you may actually have to come to the library, pull it off the shelf, check it out, read it, or make a scan or photocopy. Or perhaps the library will have to order for you via interlibrary loan. There's also a tiny percentage of time when you can't figure out how to get your hands on it, and you may have to speak to a librarian. Now I get it. You're busy. You have a lot going on. When you find a group of articles, if they don't come up right away, you're just going to ignore them and find something you can get immediate access to. That's okay. But should you find you actually need to get your hands on one of those more difficult to get ones, remember, the library uses some of that money you paid to the school to hire librarians who would be more than happy to help you find what you're looking for. No, really, they went off and got a master's degree in library science and everything.
Hopefully that helps it make a little bit more sense. Does that kind of help clarify some of the basics of searching? Anybody have any current questions right now before we move into how to find things?
The quotation mark thing is amazing.
Awesome. I'm glad that helped. I think that it is really, really helpful, and it's been really beneficial in a lot of different cases. Have you guys ever used that before?
I didn't know about it.
Me either.
Awesome. Once you start getting comfortable with searching, if you want some more tips, let us know. We've got some other little tricks to help you find some things. But that quotation mark thing is definitely going to help you right out of the gate when you start doing your research, especially when you're doing searching on a topic that actually involves a phrase like human trafficking. If you're doing a search on that, you want to keep that phrase together like she was showing in the video. So those quotation marks help a lot. Because otherwise, like she was explaining, it finds those words anywhere it's in the record. But if you tell it to keep it together with the quotation marks, it will find that phrase together instead of split apart. So it's really going to come in handy for you. All right. So let's take a look at searching for reference articles. So I'm going to go straight to the live portion of this so that you can see this firsthand. If I'm on the library website, a lot of what we're going to look at now is going to be under the search tab. The ones we're going to look at the most are going to be articles, the books and media, and then the search everything tab. Books and media I'm going to suggest over the ebooks because this is more for when you start getting into the advanced features of those particular resources and you want to maybe do cataloging or save things to your bookshelf. Books and media is actually going to allow you to search all of our ebook services at one time instead of having to choose a service. So I would suggest you use books and media for what we're going to do here in just a minute. We're going to start first, though. We talked about going from broad to narrow on those different sources. So we're going to talk about finding the e-encyclopedia articles. We're going to find ebooks, and then we're going to find electronic journal articles. So we're going to start looking for the electronic reference articles. Now, reference articles, yes, usually come out of books, but because what we're looking for is the individual articles that are in those books, we're going to click on articles to find them. So if we go under articles, down underneath here, what you're seeing on the screen is this drop down allows you to choose subject areas. And we'll come back and look at that in a little bit when we're talking about journal articles. But we're looking for reference resources, and that link is right down here at the bottom of this. So when I click on online reference resources, you'll see that there's a selection of different kinds of reference resource databases you can look at. I'll highlight the Oxford English Dictionary in case you're looking to highlight a word or if your professor ever has you do a word study, that kind of thing. But when we're talking about like electronic encyclopedias, we're going to focus on like Credo Reference Digital Library or Gale Virtual Reference or even Sage Reference Online. So I'm going to jump into Credo Reference. It's a really good database for just general definitions and things like that. And you'll see, if you can see this search box right here, it tells you that it's searching over 674 books at one time. So you can imagine that we're going to get information from a broad variety of different sources, which can be both good and bad. But let me show you how you can play with this to make it work for you. So let's say as a business student, maybe your professor keeps using the term ROI in class. ROI, ROI. What's ROI? So let's go into the encyclopedia and see if it tells us. And when I do that search, you get some things. It's giving over 1,000 results, and you're saying to yourself, this really doesn't necessarily help. This might help me a little bit, rate of return on investment. But what you can do is every database has something called a set of limiters. In this database, it's called narrow your search. But if I click the plus beside subject, it gives me some choices. And we know that we want to look at some business articles. So if I click on business, it comes over here, and the very first one says, essays, growing and maximizing SME profitability without compromising ROI. Maybe getting closer. Next one talks about rate of return on investment. Okay, maybe that's starting to help me define it. Then we've got dictionary, ROI, and Q Finance, the ultimate resource. Okay, so maybe I want the dictionary. And so we get in here and it tells us that it means return on investment, a ratio of the profit made in a fiscal year as a percentage of an investment. Awesome. Now I've got a definition for myself, and I can either continue to search with this or I can go to using the phrase. So if I want to go to return on investment, and I pressed enter, and now it's coming back and it's giving me 321 results instead of over 1,000 by searching for that specific phrase we just wanted to find out. And if you want to read any one of these, you can either you can use the limiters, you can look at specific articles. Let's say that you went specifically to the business section. Maybe you're looking at this and you're going, I want to see what all is there, but it narrowed me down to 183. That's okay. Hit the X beside that limiter and it returns you back to your original set of results. So don't ever be afraid to mess with those because you can always come back to where you were before. To illustrate, though, how we get to that full text, all you got to do is if you click on the name of the article you want to read, So if you remember what reference books look like, this would be the entry that would be in there. You've looked up an entry called Calculations and Ratios, and it's inside this book called Q Finance, the Ultimate Resource. And you can see the full text of that item as it would have appeared in the particular article. This one has links to other entries in that same encyclopedia. A different example, if we jump down to this return on investment in Webster's New World, you can see that this also gives you the full entry as it would have appeared in the dictionary. So you can see where you still get your article title up here. It tells you your book over here on the side, and it gives you the full article or definition depending on the kind of resource you're looking at. Now, another cool thing about this is down at the bottom are some citation help tools. Now, the caution I make about absolutely any database, this one or any other, is that you always want to check this citation against your rule book, because sometimes maybe it will not italicize something that should be, or it doesn't capitalize something that should be, or vice versa on either one of those issues. But what it does help you do is it pulls out those pieces of info that you need to make your citation for your paper. So it can be super helpful. And down below you can see you can switch between these styles. But for the adult and distance studies, I know you guys use APA, which is what's selected here. And what we're getting is the title of that article, the year of publication, we've got the name of the publication it was put into, and then it gives you the URL that it was pulled from. Likewise, if I want to print this off, if I click the print button, the first time you do that, it's going to ask you how you want it delivered, and I've already told it to pull it up as a PDF, so that's why it just automatically did it. But when you come over here, what you get is you get that full page right here, and then when you scroll down, your citations are still there, so you haven't lost anything. So feel free at any time if you want to print those off. You've got all that stuff right there for you. And one final thing about Credo that's kind of helpful, if you are trying to come up with ideas for the very first time, there's a tool on here called a mind map. And if I click on mind map and do my search over here, so we'll do the same one as before. So if I type in the search return on investment, click search now for that mind map, what it should do if it's working properly is it should generate, there it goes. It pulls up the term that we put in here, and if I hover on it, it pops up this box, and you can click read more and it will take you to an article. But around it, it also gives you some other terms that it believes are related. So if you're trying to find some other ideas to kind of help fuel your research, this can be a really good tool, especially if you're a visual person, to kind of look around. You see it's got the ROI abbreviation over here. You can click and read more, asset allocation methodologies. So you can kind of play with this and see how this can help you out. So you can see how this can give you some basic definitions as well as a little bit more detail about a specific topic. Is that making sense to everybody so far? Yeah. Awesome. So now we are going to move on, and we're going to talk about searching for ebooks. Now, I mentioned before that my suggestion would be to go to the books and media selection. So here's what you do. When you click on that, you come in here to our catalog, but the way you're going to harness this for yourself is you're going to come over here to where it says advanced search. When I choose advanced search, here's those limiters I mentioned that are in every database. And in this case, because you want the electronic books, what you're going to do is go to location, and you're going to tell it ebooks online. And what you're telling the database is, do not give me the physical books on the shelf upstairs, don't give me the reference books, don't give me any of that stuff. All I want to see is the electronic books. Fabulous. So now you can come up here and click in the field. Now that you've told it where you want it to come from, now we can come up here. And if we do the same thing again, let's say we want to find books on return on investment. And likewise, if we want, we can even say, or ROI, because we know that it could show up as either one. So we're saying either give me this one or give me this one. So now I hit submit. And it comes back and it tells me that there are 45 that contain either one of those terms. So this one's Retail Marketing and Branding, a Definitive Guide to Maximizing ROI, Handbook of Communication and Corporate Reputation, etc. What you're seeing on the screen right now is you see the title of the book, you see the author in the next line, And then you have the geographical location where it was published, followed by the publisher, and then the date. And then it tells you location ebook, so you know you've got the right material in front of you. And over here are the years of copyright, as well as a little symbol. This little stack of books with an old school 3.5-inch floppy represents an ebook in this catalog. So if I want to see any one of these, all I have to do is I click on the name of the book that I want to see. And you see that that information we saw out there, not only does it give you that, but then it gives you more details, including subjects. These subjects will be useful to you as you go along. Keep in mind that as you start to do research, if you pay attention to the words that they use in the research, as well as here in the records, it may help you build your search terms. So those kinds of things can be extremely useful for you. So keep an eye out on those records that you see here for other terms. But as you get to be more and more comfortable with the databases, you may want to keep track of these subjects. What we've been doing so far is keyword searching, and when we search by keywords, it looks for what we tell it anywhere in this record that it can access. And when it's in a journal database, it will also look in the full text of the article. So basically whatever it can access to find what you've told it. But when you do subject searching, you have to pay attention to specifically how that subject is listed. And if you search by this controlled line in just the subject line, like if you come up here and tell it specifically subject and you want to search by branding and marketing, it will search just this line instead of all over the record. So for most of us, when we get started searching, when we're doing most of our searches, we're keyword searching, we're looking for anywhere that that phrase appears. But as you start to get more advanced, these subjects tell us what the overarching theme of the article is about, or the book in this case. And as you start to recognize common themes that show up among those, you may want to start searching, combining keywords and subjects to make your search more powerful. So if you ever want to get into that sometime, I'll be happy to show you, but keep track of these for yourself, not only for key terms, but also for subject searching for the future. So now that we're in this record and you've got all of this information here, now how do you see the book? All you have to do is click on Access Book Online. And when it opens, as somebody who's not on campus, that's where it would ask you to sign in. So when we get here, you see information about the book, and over to the left, underneath the picture of the book, it says Read Online. Now here's the cool thing about these. When it loads, on the right side, you're going to see this book. I'm going to shrink it a little so you can see the full page. Let me go just a little bigger. Okay. So if you're somebody who's got a book and you want to read it cover to cover, that's no problem. Right up here, you see it says Page Intro of 374. There's a left and right arrow right here. So you can flip through it as though it's in your hands and you can read everything that's here. You can see the same things that you would see if the book was in your hands. So you've got your title page, you've got your page with the copyright, it's all there. Now the other thing though is if you've got a book with a table of contents that, say your book is big, like major sections of a topic, and you just need to see one section of that topic, like you would in a reference book. Maybe what you want to know is just this part 2 over here, optimizing marketing ROI, and you want to skip everything else. You can click directly on that chapter because it's hyperlinked, and it will jump to that over here in the right-hand side, so you can go directly to where you need to be. Another thing that's really great about this is if you have a particular term that you're searching for within the book, so you know that you've got this book on ROI, but maybe you want to see if it talks about, like how it talks about marketing in this book in relation to ROI. So let's type in marketing as a search term, and when I click search, it reloads that table of contents. And what you see over here is it's telling you that there are 308 times that that word appears in this book. And here is where those appear. So if I click down here, let's go down to Roman numeral 13 here. If I click on that, it says it appears 3 times on that page. So now what I can do is when I click on that, it jumps me to page Roman numeral 13. And as I scroll down, it highlights for me where that word appeared, and I can read it in context of the sentence to see if this is the information I was trying to find. So once again, you can flip back and forth left to right in the pages. You can use the table of contents that are hyperlinked, or you can even search through the book using key terms. One final thing, if you are making notes to yourself, and maybe you tell yourself, you know, page 100 has a really great quote I want to come back and get later. Up here, where it tells you what page you're on out of the total number of pages, if you click on that, and you want to go directly to a page, you can type that number in and press enter, and it will jump you straight to that page. So there's a number of different ways you can manipulate this differently than you can a paper book. More than half of our collection is electronic, so you do have quite a few items that are available to you in this format. So please do explore this and see how you can use it for your research. Is this ebooks making sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Now we are going to flip over and talk about journal articles, which I'm sure you're probably pretty familiar with. But we are going to take a look at a couple different things that we can examine as far as that's concerned. When you're choosing to do an article search, if you know that you want to approach a topic from a specific angle, you may go to articles and then choose a subject area to research from. So this represents different disciplines that are taught here at Spring Arbor. And what we've done is, for example, in the business section, we have put a list together of the databases we subscribe to that contain business articles. So when I click on business, here are some business-specific databases. Sometimes, though, when you're doing research, maybe you're in a business class, but you want to see a different angle of something, like how business and maybe sociology intersect in some way for a topic. Or maybe you're not sure what angle you want to come at something at. And that's where sometimes something like Search Everything can come in handy, because when you use the Search Everything tool, it searches across the majority of our collection at one time. Now, the trick with that is it returns a lot of results. So if you are intimidated by big numbers of things to sift through, that can be kind of scary when you see the numbers. But what it can do for you is it can show you the topic you're searching in a lot of different databases, so you're getting a lot of perspectives to look at once, and that can sometimes help you to trip across ideas that maybe you hadn't thought of before. So that's something to keep in mind. What we're going to take a look at here real quick is we're going to look at ABI Informed Complete, a business database, and maybe we want to continue to look at this idea of return on investment in marketing. So let's type in return on investment, and then we'll put marketing. Now I want to point out in this database its limiters and some things that are going to be really helpful for you as researchers. One of the things your professors will probably tell you many, many, many times, and that is to choose peer-reviewed scholarly articles. And if you've never had this explained to you before, the reason for that is, number one, of course, the scholarly portion of it is they want you to find items that pertain to that field that are credible, and that peer review process lends to the credibility of the item, because what happens is when somebody submits an article for peer review, the person writing the article is generally a subject expert in the field, and they submit it to the publisher to be put before a review panel of their peers who are also experts in the field, and that review panel reviews it and basically puts a stamp of approval on it before it ever hits the publication process. So basically it's assuring to you that the researchers who are experts in this field are giving you quality material. So that's why your professors really put an emphasis on using those kinds of articles. So to ensure you're getting that, sometimes it will simply say scholarly articles, sometimes it will say peer review, sometimes it lists both. And in this database, it says both scholarly and peer review. Scholarly articles don't necessarily go through the peer review process, but checking this box ensures that that's the kind you're getting. So make sure that you check mark those before you search if that's something your professors told you you need to have. Next, I'll show you that sometimes dates are important depending on the kind of research that you're doing. And in this database, let's see, under publication date, you've got some different choices. And if you have a specific date range, let's say you want your article in the last 5 years. So I can specify that I want it to go from 2010, and we're going to say to 2015 because we're so close to the end of 2014, some of the 2015 stuff is already starting to be put in the database. You notice we didn't have to specify day and month. It just, if you don't, it just assumes you mean the entire year. So we can tell it we want it in the last 5 years. We want it to be peer-reviewed and scholarly. Finally, one more thing that you may want to tell it is that you want full text only. Now, the caution here is if you're doing a project where you're supposed to find everything you can on a topic, sometimes databases will put those records we saw earlier into the database even when they don't have the full text. And sometimes you need to know about those items even if we don't subscribe. Because sometimes maybe it's a seminal work, maybe it's an older item we don't have full text access to, but you need to know about it so that we can help you get it. So use the full text with caution, but especially if you're on a time limit, say it's due within a week and you need to have something now, that can be a good choice too. So what we've done so far, just to kind of recap, is we're going to search for return on investment and marketing. So we want to see where those two concepts both appear in the same article. And then we've also told it that it has to be full text, it has to be peer-reviewed and scholarly, and it has to be in the last 5 years. So if I click search, it's going to think about it for a minute, and it's going to go through its little search process and in the background, and it comes back and it tells us that it's got 1,793 results that fit those criteria. So as we scroll down through here, you're seeing some things that are very similar to what we saw with the book records. You've got your title as well as your author. You've got the journal it was published in, as well as, in this case, this 11 is the volume, the 10 is the issue. Here's the date of publication, and this is the page it starts on. It may be the full page range. So if I click on this title, The Elasticity of Marketing Return on Investment, this one automatically went ahead and launched it into the PDF. And the PDF format means portable digital format. You're probably familiar with using it with Adobe Reader, but you can see that this appears just as it would have been published. And one of the things that's great about this, not only is it easier to read than just reading a web page, but it's also got your page numbers down here, which makes it easier to cite. If I go back to the abstract here, let's see if this one gave us the option of HTML full text. It did not. I'd like to show you an example where we see both. That way you can see what the difference is. Here we go. This next one, ROI, measuring the social media return on investment in a library. When I click on this one, because it's got the HTML full text option, it doesn't take us automatically into the PDF, but this one does have a PDF option over here. HTML looks like this. It's literally just the full text of the article just typed out on the page. If there are any illustrations, sometimes they're minimized off to the side or at the bottom where you can click on them and expand, and you can see that the page numbers are not included. That makes it a lot more difficult to cite, not impossible. Certainly what we have here is still the full text valid form of the article, but if you have the PDF available to you, definitely choose that because it's going to be a lot easier not only to read, but then to cite when it comes time to do your paper. You can see what a difference that makes between the HTML version and your PDF version. Going back though to the abstract real quick so you can see where this information is. In EBSCO databases, it provides your entire list up here, your entire index up here. But in ProQuest, which this is a ProQuest database, it splits it between the top and the bottom. We have the title, the author, we have the publication, the volume and issue, the date, and the pages up here. Next, when it comes to journal articles, it usually provides an abstract. And as a researcher, you're going to want to make use of this because the abstract summarizes the article. It's not a replacement for reading the article, but what it does do, you saw we had over 1,000 results. You can quickly look at this abstract, read through it, and decide whether or not this is going to be worth your time to read for the particular project you're doing. If I continue to scroll through, here's more of those subjects we talked about before. It breaks down volume, issue, page numbers, and all of that. And then it also gives you a DOI number, which when you're citing an APA is important. If you haven't covered that yet in class, I imagine Michelle probably will talk about that later. But DOI does appear on here. So there are some very quick ways to get the information you need to cite your article. And finally, a lot of these databases do provide that citation tool like the encyclopedia did. If I click on Cite right here, it pops it open. APA is the one that was there, but you can see there's other choices if you were doing it for another class. And you can see that that entire citation is here. Again, just like before, check it with your book. But this is very, very helpful in helping you at least pull the information that you need if you're having trouble locating something. For comparison's sake, while we've still got these results here, I had mentioned to you that it can be helpful to use the Search Everything tool so that you see multiple topic ideas at the same time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run that same search. This is an EBSCO database, and you can see that it's laid out a little differently, but you've still got the same choices. You've still got your full text option over here. You still got your peer-reviewed. You can see in this database, it just calls it peer-reviewed. It doesn't split it between peer-reviewed and scholarly. And we still got our date choices. So if I perform the very same search using return on investment in quotation marks and marketing in the second blank, and I click search, searching across the entire collection, it comes back and tells us that it has over 6,000 results. So you can see how changing databases can make a big difference in what you get back, and using search everything tends to give you a much bigger number than when you're searching a subject-specific database, because the subject-specific databases are only searching material from a specific pool of subject-specific data, as opposed to search everything, which is searching across multiple databases at the same time. All that making sense so far? Doing okay so far? All right. I want to touch real quickly before we conclude this evening. I know that there are times that people are tempted to search solely with Google, and I'm certainly not going to demonize Google. There are some good things about it, but there are some things that you need to keep in mind when you're doing your research. Anytime you go out to the web, you have to very carefully analyze the page that you've come to. We do have a handout. You can see the short link there on the screen. It's about 6 pages long that goes in depth over the kinds of things you need to evaluate web pages for. The great thing about databases is that they help you much more quickly decide whether or not the item you're getting is quality. There are times I understand that you need to go to web pages to get things like statistics. .gov and .edu tend to be safe areas, tend to be. But things you always need to check on any website is you need to decide whether or not the web page, the author of that web page, has the authority to talk about the topic. And likewise, joining hand in hand with that idea, are they going to be objective about the way they present the material, and are they also going to be accurate about what they're telling you? Take, for example, no matter what side of the fence you sit on with gun control, if you think about the NRA's website, they're certainly not going to necessarily be objective. It's going to have a specific slant. And you want to decide when you look at any web page whether or not there's bias and whether or not that's going to serve you well with what you're trying to do. Likewise, you also want to double check on that copyright date that's on the web page. If it's from 2007, for instance, it's probably not going to do too well for you unless it's something about history. So you're going to want to make sure that the page you're on is current, and you're also going to want to make sure that it covers the topic accurately. Something else that I think helps to understand why your professors make a point to tell you to look for, the reason that they tell you to look for those kinds of articles, specifically the peer-reviewed, is that when you search with Google, all you're getting to is something called the surface web. And what the surface web really gives to you, even as many resources as Google returns, if we take a look at this illustration, things such as Google and Bing and the like, all they're really getting to are things that are on the surface. There we go. It's finally starting to scroll. So, it'll return things to you from Wikipedia, from news sources, LinkedIn, Twitter, Amazon, blogs, you name it. And even though it looks like it's giving you a lot of information, which it does return a lot of hits, what it can't get into is the portion called the deep web. The deep web includes things like databases, academic journals, and then this thing down here called the Tor network. Focusing on this part, though, it can't show you results from these two areas because they're behind firewalls, they're password protected, and their web crawlers can't get into these areas. Yes, there are times that Google will return items that are scholarly sources, but where it's pulling that from is usually the publisher's website. It's pulling citations from the publisher's website, from the public side of it. And that's why when you go to that, then when you click on it and try to get the item, it asks for payment because it's intellectual property and somebody wants to be paid for their work. So what happens is when you go around the library and you go through Google and it tries to go into the publisher's website, it doesn't know that you've already subscribed to it through the university, and so then it asks you for payment. So if you go straight to the website and use the database and the tools there to help search, not only does it help you to be sure that what you're getting is quality and it's accurate, but it also helps you to save money by not asking you to pay extra. So hopefully that helps illustrate why a lot of times you're discouraged from using, especially strictly, search engines and asked to go into the databases and academic journals. There's literally, they estimate that literally as much as Google returns, it's really only skimming about 1% of the internet. There's that much buried in the deep web. So it's just something to keep in mind. Again, not villainizing it. I know that there are times that it can be useful to help you get jump started in finding definitions and things, but certainly there's a reason your professor sends you to these academic journals. So just something to keep in mind. Unless there are further questions, I just want to be sure one last time. Oh, I do want to mention real quickly, I think you get a little bit later into APA assistance or into APA, but I want to make sure that you know that on our website, we do have some helps with that. If I go back to our website and we go under help, there is a spot that says citation style guides. And in addition to the book, in addition to the APA manual that you have, there are these links here to give you some additional assistance. This first link is a reworked index that our librarian Karen made because she found that index difficult to use. So if you would find her version of the index easier to use with that book, feel free to look at that. This link is to the OWL Style Guide with Purdue University. It provides, if you've not been there before, it's really great at providing some links to some very specific questions and things that you may have about APA citation. It explains it really well and gives examples over here. And then finally, we have this APA style blog that comes from the APA people, and it will provide some more up-to-date descriptions of things that perhaps came out since the book itself was written. So you can use their search box over here to look for a specific kind of resource, especially if you're not finding it in the book or the guide. So without further ado, I am going to show you one more time our contact information and ask if there are any more questions at this time. Doing good so far? All right, guys. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedules to come and listen to me talk about the library for a while tonight. If you do have questions, you know where to find us. So please do feel free to contact us, okay?
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
You bet. I hope you guys have a great evening. Thanks,
You too.
Michelle. Thanks for setting this up, Michelle. All right.
Bye.
Bye.